Well, as you can probably tell, I'm the second part of this talk, this video. Um, didn't happen immediately after the hospital appointment, um, because I was unable to. I would say unable to say what I wanted to say immediately after. I'm at home now, um, and this is some time after the appointment. I mean, what are we now? We're into May now. So there's been a big gap before I felt ready to record the second part, the follow up part. How many more parts there'll be, I don't know. Um, Good and bad from the appointment. No, actually, from the appointment itself, good, all good, really good. I met the counsellor at Wansbeck, one of the two, and he was brilliant. He was really good. Um, he was calm, listened really well, which sounds like that should just be the default um, for counselling. Not the case, unfortunately. I have worked with people who were in a counselling role, some qualified as such, others not, but still fulfilling a counselling role where they were maybe not so good at listening. Lucky for me, the guy at Wansbeck was very good, is very good. Um, and he did a great job of listening through everything I had to say. I was able to talk, which had been a concern before I'd gone in, that maybe I would. I think I knew I would talk. I felt ready. I felt ready for a while. What my worry was before the appointment was that I would forget to say something important. So um, I actually took with me a notebook that I'd made some notes in a few nights prior to the appointment of the things that I felt were contributing factors to how I've been feeling and the struggles that I've had. And these were from all over the place. Um, they were to do with my family, my wider family, my immediate family, my job, my role, the changes to that, things that have happened at work in the last 2 years, things that have happened at work before that time, and I'm really glad I took the notes because it allowed me to have my thoughts collected. I didn't have a lot on the notes, just starting points really, and then I just spoke. I spoke from my heart as much as possible about my perception of what I experienced. And I think that's something that people struggle with when talking about themselves. People kind of fall into two camps. One is that they feel maybe that they won't be believed, that they'll people think that they are exaggerating or um, maybe even making things up, or um, I think the other thing is, and this was probably more where I landed it. It wasn't so much that I didn't think I would be believed, but perhaps the person listening to my difficulties, the things that I had found hard, would think, "Oh, what's wrong with you? What's hard about that?" Like my worries, my concerns, my fears, my the things that have maybe broken my head, broken my heart, whatever it might be, that I should just be able to if we're going back to the previous episode or previous part, that I should just be able to man up and get through them, and that the response from the counselor is going to be, essentially man up, get on with it, stop moaning, which of course is ridiculous. That is going to be very rare that you come across anything that was close to that experience, what they will do is they will listen, they will understand. And for me, talking through it actually had the opposite effect. Rather than talking through everything and sitting there thinking, "Oh God, he's going to think, this is nothing. He's going to think this is just something I should just plow on through, get my head down, and get on with it." For me, it actually had the opposite effect in that everything I went through, everything I spoke about, everything I um, opened up about, it actually made me realize just how much has happened in the last. I mean, I've capped it at 5 years so far. There's stuff I could go back further, but I feel in particular it's the last 2 years which have been incredibly difficult. But part of that responsibility sits with the last 5 years, which is why those are the things I focused on. But it really, again, really brought it home just how much I have been carrying. Um, and the counsellor saw this. He recognised this. And one thing he did do, which was really good for me, um, in terms of getting your head round it all, getting my brain moving again, getting the gears turning, getting towards acknowledging the problems and working towards the solutions rather than just feeling lost and broken and scared. And that was that he was able to look at it. He was able to step back from it just a little bit. Um, Ask me more details about certain areas, about certain things, and he said to me, um, two things that jump out to him was that almost everything I spoke about was about loss, which I hadn't realized or really even thought about in that way until he pointed it out. And he said some of it's really obvious loss, things that most anyone would characterize as loss, like losing my granddad in December. That was a loss, and we felt that hard as a family. Um, we all did, um, and but wrapped up in that loss of my granddad was going back and being at the funeral and seeing all of the family brought back together for the most horrible of reasons, and thinking how happy it would have made my granddad to see everyone there all together, all like that, because we haven't been for such a long time. And the reason we haven't been is because as a family, as a widespread family, we are broken. It's not one happy, secure unit that doesn't see each other very much. Some of these people live down the road and they do not speak to each other, and we're only in the same very large room because of an awful thing that happened. And it wasn't like that for me growing up. So the obvious loss was also a gateway to seeing maybe a less obvious loss. Our cat Moxie died in really horrific circumstances last year. Again, that was another obvious loss. And those two things were things I would have characterized as loss and said, yeah, I'm in amongst everything else. I'm also dealing with the loss of a beloved pet and the loss of my grandfather, who was a hell of a man. But the counsellor highlighted, he said, you have lost so much in so many other areas that I really didn't see them as loss. But there were less obvious things like loss of security, loss of um, just feeling safe. There were things like loss of identity. You know, everything I spoke about, loss of trust, loss of confidence, loss of pride. It was all loss, and I didn't really realize that until he was able to sit down and kind of talk through. And the other thing he said, the other thing that jumped out to him, and he said he could sense that it would be a source of frustration for me, and he was absolutely right. Again, it wasn't something that I'd spoken about, and sorry, it wasn't something I'd thought about. Was that everything I spoke to him about was some things that happened that were just completely out of my control. And I was trying to take responsibility for them. I was trying to keep some semblance of control over things, and the only way I could think to keep control of it was to take responsibility for certain things that were just not my responsibility. And within one session, which was just over an hour long, well, probably about an hour long, we started a little bit late, that he was able to kind of recognize that about me, and said that recognize that it would have frustrated me that life was happening to me, things were happening to me, because I don't like to think like that. I don't like to think of life happening to me, things being out of my control. You know, you make of life what you can, and I'm trying to. We're all trying to, but all of these events were things that I couldn't have done something different and changed the outcome. Yet I'm sat beating myself up for not having changed the outcome, and it was hard to deal with. It was really, really hard to just acknowledge that it didn't matter what I did. These things were going to happen. Um, last time, last time I recorded a video, I started speaking about two phrases that were really unhelpful when it came to understanding not just mental health, but more specifically male mental health. And I spoke at length about the phrase man up. And for some reason, I'd forgotten, when it came to the end of the video, forgotten what the other phrase was. And um, which seems daft now because I remembered afterwards. And I do sort of touch on it in a number of times, just I don't specify the phrase. The phrase I was talking about is the strong silent type. Oh, he's the strong silent type. And how dangerous that is. Like something that you want men to aspire to be. Strong and silent. Silence isn't strength. I was not stronger for staying silent. And I'm not weak because I'm talking. I'm not weak because I went and I spoke to a counsellor about the things I needed to talk about. And I'm not weak talking about them now, here, with tears in my eyes. It's scary. It's not comfortable. It's not an easy thing to do. I'm scared of doing it. I'm scared. I'm holding a camera, looking into it, speaking to... There's no one else in the room. And still it's hard. Just saying these things out loud is difficult. But it's not weak. Silence isn't strength, and everyone needs to get that through their heads. When someone's having a rubbish day, you don't say to them, man up. If you meet someone and you're talking to your friends about them, whether it is, again, we're talking culturally, we're talking typically women speaking about men, or perhaps men also speaking about men. But it's not often that women would be described as the strong silent type. It's not seen as a feminine quality that women should aspire to be, strong and silent. Um, and I agree with that. Women shouldn't aspire to be strong and silent, but neither should men. Strength, fine. You can be a strong woman, you can be a strong man. But this silence thing, that's where I've got the issue. Because there isn't any strength in silence. It doesn't help you, it doesn't help anyone else. It doesn't progress the conversation on a national level, on a local level, on an individual level. It doesn't help anyone. So I'm not going to be silent. I made a decision prior to recording this, after I'd recorded the first part, that I want my voice to be heard, even if it's by 2 people, 3 people, 1 person. if someone listens to what I'm saying, if someone hears me and it helps them talk, it helps them open, it will have been worth it. But I hope it's not one person. I hope it's dozens. I hope it's. I hope I can be a small part of what gets this conversation moving. I've been looking on social media, people hashtagging mental health, male mental health, remove the stigma, and that's great. And I thought about a blog. I thought maybe I could write down some of what I'm going through. And then I thought, no, I've got to talk. I've got to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it more with my counsellor over the coming sessions, and I'm going to talk more into a camera that I'm going to share with whoever wants to join the discussion. And I'd love to hear back from people, whether you're my family, you're my friend, you're a stranger, you know me because we live in the same town, you remember me from school, you've never met me before in my life and you live in a different country. I don't care who you are. If you want to talk, I want to listen, and I want to talk back, because that's how we're going to increase the understanding around mental health problems. It's not something we can eradicate. There isn't a cure, but there is a process that we can go through, and we can all engage in that. So that's what I'm going to do, and it's going to start with my first 2 episodes, my first 2 recordings, part 1, part 2. I hope you've watched them both. I hope there are more to come. I hope I can manage that. I'm not making any guarantees or any promises. I'm just saying that right now I want to tell my story and I want my voice to be heard. Okay? I think I'm going to leave it there. I think that's enough. I think that's enough for today. Okay? If you're listening, thank you for listening. I really mean that. Thank you. And if you've got something to say, if you've got something to share, it doesn't have to be with me. I'm just saying it can be. But talk to someone. Because it's so important. Okay?